welcome back to Laurence McKenna on LFC channel, where Liverpool have just beaten Chelsea 2-1 at Anfield, and there is a lot to unpack from this game. Of course, we're excited here on this channel because we were wondering how good Liverpool are. We may still be wondering that, but with this discussion, at least we can talk about Liverpool's growing confidence in the season, growing ambitions, and of course, their momentum that they felt so far. It's been interesting to look at how Liverpool played Chelsea, mainly because I think a lot of people this season need to get used to the idea that we're not absolutely going to roll through teams every week or at all like we did in the Klopp era. It was a dominant kind of football in the Klopp era that felt a lot more visibly dominant, viscerally dominant with what was going on with Klopp. But what goes on under Slot is a lot more controlling. There are different nuances, not more nuances, not less nuances, they're just different nuances. And it also means that I think Liverpool as a team look a lot calmer. The players have already spoken about that, but it's becoming more and more evident every week that the players are a lot more relaxed about how they're going to play the game and weirdly make different decisions for the ones they would in the Klopp era, not only ball movement wise, but also just in terms of sometimes they almost do things that look almost too calm, and that's therefore unexpected. I think there are going to be games where Liverpool get sucked into it and these kind of things, but I think broadly, Slot's idea is to keep things on a fairly even keel and try to win the game through just actually being the better team. It's not about, should we say leveling the odds, mainly because, in previous eras under Klopp, it felt like it was like we were the underdogs fighting up. Liverpool play like as an equal to the opposition now. Not that they weren't before, but it feels more like that. I have to address one thing at the top of this. I think the refereeing massively impacted this game for the negative in this game. And a lot of people are going to be talking about Chelsea had lots of decisions go against them as well. Liverpool had 3 key penalty decisions go against them. And I want to talk about all 3 of those before we continue onto any of the other stuff. First one, I think Salah was pulled back in the box early on. It felt like a very blatant penalty to me, but it wasn't given. There was a foul at the other end of the field where I think Szoboszlai pulled someone back, or maybe someone else pulled someone back. It was given as a foul. I didn't understand why one was a foul and one wasn't. In fact, it wasn't even pulled back. It's actually that Colwell just went through the back of him when he went past him, and it wasn't given as a penalty. I don't get why, but okay, here we are. Second penalty was actually given, the one that was the absolute take out of the legs on Curtis Jones. For me, that felt the least obvious of the 3 penalties, mainly because the ref had given it even probably before the other player had even swept up the ball as it had gotten away from Jones. It was a weird penalty, but it was a penalty. Jones' legs were clearly taken. Salah steps up, makes it 1-0 to Liverpool. At that point, I knew Chelsea were going to score a goal in this game, so I knew it didn't put us on all that much of it didn't put us into the easy lane, but it was certainly influential, put it that way. It means that Chelsea has to come on to you a little bit more. Third penalty, the one with Jones going through on Sanchez. Now, I know there are other people back there as well. I think that is probably going to impact the referee's decision, but also impacting the VAR decision. For me, if the referee's given it as a penalty, I don't feel it's clear and obvious. If it wasn't given as a penalty, you could make the opposite argument as well, that it was not clear and obvious to therefore ask him to go to the screen and say it was a penalty. If the ball does not go through Sanchez's legs, if Sanchez wins the ball. Jones was the last, so Jones takes it through, or the ball is through. Sanchez then touches it, then Jones touches it again. So it becomes in Sanchez's possession and then Jones's possession. Sanchez then takes Jones out during the period where Jones is in possession. He's put it between his legs and essentially nutmegged him. Whether he meant to do that or not is a different thing. I think Jones meant to put it between his legs and it therefore just go in the goal, but it didn't have the momentum. He clearly takes him out and he clearly influences Jones's play. So for me, it's a penalty and I don't think that should be overturned. I think it got weirdly overturned. They showed very specific moments and I felt that was frustrating. I think that could have put Liverpool 2-0 up at half-time, and the tweaks and the things that Chelsea make may feel relevant, but it puts Liverpool in a much better position, and Chelsea have to come out and attack the game very differently. Now, let's speak a little bit more about the first half. I felt Liverpool were in control for a majority of that first half. If you were to look at the game states, the attacking states, I'd say Chelsea had a couple of times where they went forward and the ball goes over the bar. Palmer puts it just over. I think they could have worked their way back into the game. There was an argument in my chat as to whether it's 4-1 or 3-1. I was watching the game live. You can watch it there as well on my main channel or on my Liverpool channel. Point being, right, Liverpool I felt were there was never a point where they felt like they were overly attacking Chelsea, but they never really felt like at the point they were at that much danger either. And because Liverpool are so used to being on the front foot, and because people are so used to us being like, stiflingly on the front foot, and our pressing is very different now. We just try and reduce the pitch, reduce where they can play the ball, and then win it back a little further down the field, as opposed to winning it back like we do in the Klopp era. The judgment of Liverpool is now, oh, well, they're not as intense, they're not quite as good, so are they really as good? Are they as in control? I think they're more in control. I think they're more frustrating for the opposition. The weird thing is, I think the referee has influenced all of that in this game. For instance, consistency of refereeing, right? There was a red card yesterday for Saliba, no red card today for Tosin. I'm trying to work out where the difference in logic is. I'd love to see that. If you can explain that, please explain that more clearly. I think it was a yellow card yesterday for Saliba. I think it was a yellow card today for Tosin. But I don't understand why there's consistency. Because if we're talking about consistency, that was another thing in my chat. It's like, well, you've got to give penalties consistently. Well, we've got to give all the decisions consistently then. The referee was constantly bringing back decisions for Chelsea players being pulled back or Chelsea players being moderately fouled, even if it was a 50-50. And Liverpool barely got any of those calls, if any of those calls in that first half. It felt very biased towards the Chelsea side of things. And I felt personally it impacted the game so negatively that it didn't play out the way that it should have played out. That carried on for almost the whole game. There were free kicks given that put Liverpool in direct danger. There were just weird decisions that went against us. And frankly, what I thought was very weird was Tosin clearly tries to land on Jota when Jota goes through and ultimately injures him. So he has to go off at the end of the first half. Coming on is Darwin Núñez. Now, I thought Núñez was very chaotic as well in this game. But what was weird about it was it seemed to put Chelsea's backline on their back foot, like really a more experienced backline that I think will come up against in a few weeks' time, even though they will not have a Gabriel-Saliba combination, would deal with that very differently and probably much better. I think Jota's much more of a danger in this game to Chelsea than Núñez is. Even though Núñez went through a couple of times, he couldn't remain onside. Jota, in his deep-lying playmaking role that he kind of combines with either Szoboszlai or Curtis Jones, depending on who's nearest to him at the time, was really bringing Gakpo and Salah into the game. And it was really sucking the Chelsea players inwards that would then create that space outwards. And Liverpool counteracting the fullback on one side, being really far down the field, with Salah just really taking up that space and going one-on-one against Colwell multiple times. He took advantage of him. It was stretching the game for Liverpool and putting Chelsea on the back foot. You might not say, that directly leads to a goal, but this attrition that Liverpool seem to have right now is really very effective, and I think is something that we will learn to factor into our analysis, especially as we're currently getting very frustrated. Midfield control for Liverpool. Let's shout Gravenberch out first. I think we'll get onto Jones. We'll get onto Szoboszlai later. Gravenberch was so solid in this game. Normally, he has someone alongside him who you feel is holding his hand. He isn't, but he is in a narrative sense in McAllister. He's very good at mopping up. He's very good at imposing himself. He does a lot of the dirty and the doggies in this, and not that Gravenberch doesn't, but it made it a lot easier. Gravenberch was always well positioned in this game. He was always open for a pass. He was, in fact, always the counterbalance to the guy who was very often receiving the pass in Szoboszlai or Jones, and it made Liverpool's night a lot easier. He was intelligently moving around the field, especially deeper, but there were multiple times where he turned away from an opposition player, used his body to shield the ball through, was an option for Van Dijk, was an option for Konate. I think he was exceptional. He was probably my shout for the silent man of the match today, not the visible one, but the silent man of the match. And again, brilliant in this game. There were questions over whether we'd be able to cope against more quality midfields. Again, real question as to whether we came up against an actual quality midfield today against Chelsea. I don't think their shape was there in the same way. I don't think that their composure was there. I think if we come up against a midfield that's got composure, I'd like to see that. Again, just a different test. I don't think we came up against all that much quality today, and I don't think price reflects what Chelsea's midfield is actually worth. I think Liverpool imposed themselves. They knew the tactical nuances of what Maresca was going to try and do, and it worked really well. The other side of that was this kind of dual rotation, which was very common in the Feyenoord days under Slot, of either Szoboszlai or Jones being more advanced and the other one dropping a little bit deeper. The intensity of that meant Chelsea just could not keep up with Liverpool's midfield movement. And the variation in that made a massive difference to how we won the ball back. Players were constantly looking over their shoulder, constantly worried they were going to get tackled. But more importantly, we were able to cut off all the important passing lanes for Chelsea to get to Cole Palmer, mark him out of the game, take him out of being influential. And he had to slip into that space between the centre-back and the midfielders to try to get that influence. He couldn't come deep and get the ball easily. He had to get into that area, and we isolated him out of the game with that. Doesn't mean that, of course, Nicholas Jackson didn't score that goal early in the second half. Talk about that more in a second. Doesn't mean that Chelsea didn't have some observations as to how they could get through against us. But their tweaks, I think they came out making tweaks and went, we've got them with these tweaks. And they didn't think that Liverpool would be going out there and making their own tweaks. And Liverpool did do that. Salah was, again, incredible in this game. Jones with that number 10 run to get through. Núñez was offside, just passively lets the ball go past him, and Jones is well onside to receive the ball. It's a great, intelligent piece of football that I think people like Slot are coaching into this team. It's so satisfying to watch. And after Jones didn't get the penalty in the first half, it's great to watch him go and influence the game very directly in the second half. The baby celebration, congratulations, by the way, Curtis, for that. And again, the kind of who's hearing me, who's listening. He's been working on his game with Slot in the same way as Gravenberch has, in the same way as Szoboszlai has. And it's really satisfying to see. Now to the risk taker in the team, one of the bigger risk takers, Szoboszlai. Szoboszlai tries a lot of things in the side which sometimes don't come off. Sometimes when he's deeper, it's maddening. But sometimes when he's further down the field, you go, I get why you're making the attempt here. You're getting paid for the attempt almost. And I love his hook-up play when it works. There are times in the game where I thought, wow, you are really like at the centre of this, you're moving again. And when he's not moving, when he's not there, you really see this Liverpool side sort of go, oh, where's Szoboszlai in this move? He's great when it works. But there are times where it does break up quite easily, and I wonder how an opposition player is going to mark him out of the game. His movement, Jones's movement, and Gravenberch's rotation and movement just confused the opposition so much. It made it so hard to track. It makes it exciting to think about what they're going to do against Arsenal next week, who they will try to pull out of position, what Arsenal's midfield is going to do. I think they'll play Marino because they'll need him in that role to try to pin one of the Liverpool players back. I think they'll play Rice, and I think that third player is going to be interesting to see. Probably Partey, but let's see. And that will put more emphasis on the striker down the other end. If it's Núñez, it'll be really interesting because I think we would have liked to play Jota against Arsenal to start, bring on Núñez. It might end up being that there is like a Diaz, Salah, Gakpo thing that goes on up front, but let's see there. Ultimately, I think Jones was the man of the match, visibly. I think Salah deserves a real man of the match shout for me. But what I think was interesting was the self-sacrifice of so many other players in the team, knowing that these players could go out there and execute what it was that Slot wanted them to do. Trent sacrificed a huge part of his game today in order to be defensively rigid, defensively solid. And when they brought Pedro Neto on, it was a direct dig and attack at Trent of, we want to go at this guy and test him. And actually, he stood up really well against that test. I think multiple times we saw he took Sancho out of the game, they took Sancho off, but this was the tweak. And they brought busy players on in those positions that Liverpool had to counteract. And maybe after a while when you go, well, the defensive work of Trent is noble, but to bring on a Gomez who's really solid, reads the game really well, to have him in your squad is insane in the first place, by the way. But he was really great and worked really well for Liverpool. I was very satisfied to see him come on because it also means we're kind of shutting the game down. Slot seems very unapologetic about making very specific tweaks within the team. And I think some of these subs previously felt surprising to Liverpool players under Klopp. Under Slot, it seems there's a lot more logic, in my humble opinion, to his subs, which make a big difference to our game. The Núñez thing I get. I think Klopp would have experimented and maybe brought on Diaz and pushed Gakpo more centrally. We'll see. Gakpo and Salah are massively benefiting from the play of their central striker and from the rotation of those midfielders because other Chelsea players get sucked in and Liverpool just get in there. But the solidness in this game of Trent and Andy on the other side pulled their fullbacks down the field because they had to come and challenge them. And Liverpool had so much space to run into to just challenge the two isolated centre-backs on Chelsea's side, and it worked really well. It bypassed their solid midfield combo of Caicedo and Lavia and put them on the back foot. It's really satisfying to watch. These are minor things that are making a big difference in how Liverpool control games. We're no longer that team that we control through pressing. Of course we control through pressing and making the field as small as possible, but now it's about multiple different phases of control for Liverpool, and you see the very calm way in which they win it back. Rotate, 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 and they're away and back down the field, and there's something very satisfying about that. Grav did it multiple times, Szoboszlai did it. I love the feet of Curtis Jones. You can see he's been working on his feet, moving out of those positions with the coaching staff. It's so satisfying. And I think Liverpool deserved to win by more. I'll be honest, I don't think we flattened them, but I think we nullified everything we needed to nullify. The ball over the top to Nicholas Jackson was one of their few balls out in the game. And I think the only other real opportunity they created that was really dangerous was the one of Palmer on the edge of the box. Maybe that's game-changing at that point, but I think Liverpool will be frustrated to have conceded today and allow him that chance and allow Nicholas Jackson the other chance that he took. Madueke had an opportunity, didn't really see it as a big opportunity, but there's a couple of times where the balls come over the top. I'll be interested to see what Liverpool do with that against Saka and Martinelli, because they're much more deadly. Even though Martinelli's getting a bit of criticism right now, they're much more deadly. The ball over the top is probably one of our only clear weaknesses. And you can see they try and go between the fullback and the centre-back because that is where we are weak, in inverted commas. That's the part where you would attack against Liverpool. Van Dijk and Konate know that, so they try and control those areas, and more often than not, they do control those areas. But the fullbacks in this game sacrificed a lot of their attacking play in order to do what they needed to do. And the times when they did get on it and were able to drive forward felt really refreshing, and you could see Chelsea knew we are wide open here when those fullbacks could get on the ball and drive forward. Trent drove a couple of times. Andy actually was pretty solid, but managed to drive 1 or 2 times. And really what it meant was Liverpool's midfield had to dominate and control the game. And Liverpool dominated and controlled that midfield today. Very satisfying to watch. Momentum is a real thing in the Premier League. Momentum, mainly because you can't control the order in which you play teams. They just come, you have to play them. We can't control that there's a really difficult month here in November coming up. So play the way you need to, but build that momentum. Build the confidence within the side. I think Liverpool are going to come up against really difficult midfields. There are going to be games where people go, God, look at that mistake from Grav, look at that mistake from whoever. But not starting with our solid midfield of McAllister, Gravenberch and Szoboszlai, and starting with Curtis Jones in there and that rotating, very different way that he does it, than McAllister and Szoboszlai, was really satisfying because it gave me some confidence that the rotation in this midfield can happen. And if we get to January and have one more body in there, because I don't think Endo is considered that kind of guy just yet, that gives us a really solid footing as a midfield to work on. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. By the way, footnote, I don't think Keller had all that much to do today, but his distribution was very good. I think he filled in and deputised for Alisson really well. He's got to make those his he's got to make that his set of gloves in this period because Alisson's not coming for them. And I'm disappointed with his positioning for the goal. Possibly could have been a bit further over. But again, he was isolated. He was pretty much one-on-one, despite the tackle from behind. Really great finish. And Chelsea deserved that goal at that point. It was a really good observation. They just switched off after that and allowed Liverpool back into the game. And that was very satisfying. Slot is a very satisfying, surprising manager. And I'm really enjoying watching him right now. Love to know what you guys think in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed the game as much as I did. I think it's a really solid footing to attack the next month with, and it gives us something to look back on if a strong team in this period goes, "Hey, yeah, we're gonna show you who you are when you lose." Interesting time for us. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Start this period solid. Start this period solid. We did. Man of the match Jones, secondary Salah, third Grav, fourth. Konate knew what he had to do today. I really appreciate his game management. And there are times where you could see he wanted to make a tackle after he made that yellow card tackle early on. And it worked. He didn't make that tackle. He just got back into position. It was a very calm, collected performance today from Liverpool. I really think they deserve credit for that. At Anfield, we will not always be at Anfield in the coming weeks. Let's see how that works out for us. I think with an underdog punching up, after that City performance, I don't know, I feel like they look vulnerable. Not they didn't win. There's the confidence from that. They look a little more vulnerable. I'd be interested to know what you guys think in the comments below. Let me know how you're feeling about the Liverpool team after this, and I'll chat to you more on the channel tomorrow with more analysis. Join me for the live streams as I watch the Liverpool game, and join me in the Patreon down there if you want to support my work. Join me in the Discord. I'll chat to you guys in a little while. Much love. Bye.